Yo, what's up, guys? So I put on my story that I was gonna take the political compass test and my results to it, and so I will do that right now. But I also just wanted to say that because I'm doing it on camera, I read the full instructions. I read the frequently asked questions, and so that might give me slightly different answers on a couple of them, but I'll explain which of those it is when I get there and why I'm changing my answers just a little bit. This is not a perfect test. Some of the questions are pretty vague, which is why I had to look up the instructions for a couple of them since I was going to do it on camera. But every question goes strongly disagree, disagree, agree, strongly agree. There's no neutral, there's no I don't know. So I'm going to have to answer every single one and explain. Here goes. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations, right? Agree, right? But it should, but the rub is how, right? How is that gonna happen? But I agree. In theory, yeah. Question two. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. No, strongly disagree. I think that if you agree with that, you're a terrifying person, and I don't want to meet you. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I would hit neutral if I could. There's no neutral, so I'm gonna hit disagree. I'm from Washington State and Pennsylvania, half and half. I'm particularly proud of Kurt Cobain and of Dave Grohl and of Eddie Vedder and of Dave Matthews and Jimi Hendrix and Ray Charles. You know, people from around where I'm from, Joe Montana. You know what I'm saying? People who are American who have impacted me. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, John Brown, quite frankly, Abraham Lincoln, a lot of people. Marilyn Monroe, Ella Fitzgerald, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't think that it is good to be proud of things that are shameful, but I think that it's fine, I guess, to be proud of the things, the culture that you've, number one, contributed to for hopefully your whole life, and also drawn in, and hopefully it shaped you and made you a kind of upstanding person, so you have something to be thankful to the culture for. And if you're not an upstanding person, then maybe you should look to some of the great Americans who have been and shape up. um Disagree. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Well, they're gonna try to make you come out to be racist, but agree. Not inherently, not maybe at the time of birth, but I don't want to go into a Chinese restaurant and everybody is black. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe Indian people do Indian food superior. Go figure. At a population level. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with that. Not off birth, but off of how you're raised. And statistically, at a population level, we can look and see that there are differences between races out there. Look at the data. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Um, no, strongly disagree. I think the enemy of your enemy can easily be your enemy. And I think that if you believe that, you're liable to get. Uh, Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I don't know. I don't know what the details of international law is. In terms of that, but what I do know is if I was major general of the armed forces or something like that, and we got nuked or something like that, then I don't know what you really expect. I don't know what international law is or how we would or should respond to something like that, but I know that we can't just say no thank you. I don't fucking know. So I'm going to say agree. I don't know how international law can help a world that's divided into nation states. It can help as long as we all obey it. So maybe it's not justified in breaking it first. I think that's reasonable, but sometimes justified second. Um there is now a whirring fusion of information and entertainment. I'm going to say agree. I would say neutral if I could. I think a lot of people are dumb. I'll say that. I think a lot of people watch Fox's gut feel. I don't know what the guy called that, like little skinny white guy with the white hair, and he's not funny. It's really cringy. A lot of people watch like John Oliver or like Trevor Noah. Oh God, cringe. Stuff like that, and then they take it as gospel and they don't do any research. But I think that there's always been a fusion of information and entertainment, and I don't think that that's always bad, because I think that that's elitist perspective. Just because you're learning something from something that's also entertaining doesn't mean that the information is necessarily bad. It's just that you should just keep on doing research in all different kinds of sources. And everyone really should try to, read a couple books on a topic if you want to speak on it. But if you don't want to speak on it, then, be entertained when you get a little bit of information, so you can at least understand what other experts are talking about when they're talking. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. Agree. I think the world is run by a few rich people. I have a pimple, by the way. Look at that. Yeah, I think the world is run by a few rich people, and they got a lot of power over all of us. And so, yeah, I do think that a few countries have a working class that has a higher standard of living than the lower classes in other countries, for sure. But I do think that the world is more divided by class than nationality. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I don't know the answer to this. I am not an economic expert. Here's what I can say. I understand how we can control inflation in terms of the Federal Reserve. I believe that controlling inflation impacts unemployment. So I get, and also, like, unemployment also involves more direct personal choice, I guess. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit agree, but I don't know. You guys educate me on that one. Do your own research. I need to still understand a lot more in terms of economics. I just crushed Tom Sowell's Basic Economics after finishing the crash course economics for like the third time, but still I'm dumb on that kind of stuff, so it's hard to go in. So I'm still trying to understand. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Strongly agree. Corporations have a profit incentive to make money for their shareholders, and that's where the government has to step in. If we don't step in and regulate them, then they won't. They're gonna trash the earth. And if we can't have a product without trashing the earth, we can't have that product. We're gonna have to figure out a different way, because this is where we live. So yeah, the government has to step in and regulate companies in terms of certain things. It doesn't mean that we need a commie USA, but it does mean that we can't fucking trust corporations to the extent of protecting the environment. No. Here we go. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Okay, so here is where I'm going to cheat a little bit and jump off of the quiz and read the full quote of this. It does come from Marx in his critique of the Gotha program. So I don't actually know what the Gotha program is. I don't know what he was responding to, but this is the actual paragraph of what he says. In a higher phase of communist society, after the enslaving subordination of the individual to the division of labor, and therewith also the antithesis between mental and physical labor has vanished. God bless him. That's not part of the quote. Here I continue. After labor has become not only a means of life, but life's prime want, after the productive forces have also increased with the all-around development of the individual, and all the springs of cooperative wealth flow more abundantly, only then can the narrow horizon of bourgeois right be crossed in its entirety, and society inscribe on its banners, from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. So, the question asks, do I think it's a fundamentally good idea? I think heaven is a fundamentally good idea. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this is Earth. This is reality. This is not a perfect world. This is not magic society. And until we can, oh Lord, no. Look, strongly disagree. No. I'm gonna say disagree, and here's why. Is it a fundamentally good idea? Again, yes. But in practice, this idea has gotten a lot of people killed. A lot of people killed. In actuality, this is no. This is not something we want. The freer the market, the freer the people. Also disagree. Not necessarily. That doesn't just correlate. I mean, it depends on what you mean by free, right? But I think we all have an understanding of what we mean by free. It's generally a life where you can have enough calories per week, where you can feel like safe, physically, where you can like have the career that you want, where you can pursue your happiness, and your life and your liberty, and where your constitutional rights aren't infringed on. And just a free market isn't gonna cut it, okay? There's a lot more that you need to make sure that people are free, like a constitution. There's just other elements to being actually free, I think, than the market being free. I think that it's just irresponsible. Only Jordan Belfort would say that. Shout out, Wolf. You're a criminal. But I liked the movie, though. And I like your Insta. I really, really just don't like people who take advantage of other people, like, perpetually. Like, none of us are perfect, right? But, like, I think it's ungodly. Anyways, it's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. No, I disagree. I think that you should not drink bottled water because of the plastic as much as possible. But I don't. But no, I think that is actually kind of a miracle, and I think, you know, it's kind of crazy that we can get people bottled water, if need be. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Strongly disagree with that. Yo, look, like, to me, when I hear that, I'm pretty sure that the only alternative is the government owns, or like is responsible for all the land and doles it out. So no, strongly disagree. It's okay to buy something you need. Why else are you making money? What how do you guys think things work? I'm blown away by some things like this. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to society. Look, I would probably hit neutral again because I don't see the alternative. And kind of saying it's regrettable sort of implies that you have something like to offer, and I don't. But is it regrettable to me? Yeah, I think it's kind of gross because I think that I've met a lot of like trust fund kids. I went to Springside Academy as a little kid before it was Springside Chestnut Hill, which it is now. It was a girls' school. I went to Charles Wright Academy in Tacoma. I went to Bryn Mawr College. I have met a lot of rich people, and I mean rich. And I mean rich, okay? Somebody told me, I don't know if this is true, when I was at Bryn Mawr, told me that Bryn Mawr and Haverford, which we call the BICO, the bi campus, the bi college, I don't know. Anyways, the BICO, must be bi college, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, in terms of income. Now, 90% of the students there were in the top 1% of the world in terms of the world, obviously that's not saying as much as the United States, but that's saying something, right? So I've met a lot of very, very wealthy people, and I've met a lot of very disgusting people, who are disgusting, I think, because they're entitled. But in order for society to work, people need to invest in things. I don't know what else to say. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. This I don't know the answer to. I'm going to say agree, and here's why. I was born in Pennsylvania. I was born in the Rust Belt, and now it's really the fucking Rust Belt. Look at what's going on over there. Look at Appalachia. To me, and the Midwest. Look at what do you call it? Not Denver. Jesus. Detroit. Look at Detroit. The fact that American manufacturing is pretty much over. The fact that everything is made in China, I don't think it's a good thing. Now, I don't have the answers to globalization. I don't have the answers to our economy and all of that stuff, but I don't understand, like, without protectionism, I just don't ever understand how those areas of the country, and yeah, okay, learn to code, right? Right? But I don't know without protectionism how we're ever going to get back to a situation where the average working class American has a shot, like Steel City, where I was born, where my granddad was a steel, or worked in the mills. All those people, I just don't know. I don't know what would happen without protectionism to some extent. So I guess somebody's gonna have to explain to me, because I'm ignorant about that. But I think it's sad of what's happening. That's all I really have to say. So that's why I hit agree. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver profit to its shareholders. I'm going to say I slightly disagree with that, and the reason why is because I don't think that you should be allowed to mislead the public. I think that you genuinely should have to, you should adhere to your mission statement or change it. And I don't think that you should be able to lie. The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree, because they're not. The rich are not paying their fair share. They're not. They're not. They're just not paying it. They're getting out of it. And both of our parties are making sure that remains the same, which is why we need more parties. That is going to be the big issue of our time, is making sure that we have a multi-party system, so that normal Americans whose views are not just like straight Democratic, straight Republican ticket can actually be represented, and we can make this country great for the first freaking time. Okay, now I'm gonna open my door because my dog is in the car. My dog Luna is sleeping back there. I'm gonna open the door a little, and I am going to, hit this legal CBD. This federally legal CBD that I got where I live in Washington. So, sorry for that clicking. That was my car. So, anyways, yeah, they're not paying. So, I strongly disagree with that. We need to make sure that they pay their fair share so that we can have a functional society. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Yeah, agree. You should be allowed to pay for whatever you want. I'm pretty sure that if I'm reading this correctly, the only alternative to this would be that there's only public healthcare and there's no private healthcare at all. And I just think you can spend your money, and you should be able to spend your money on whatever you want to spend it on. Because I know that my healthcare is not something that I would probably invest a lot of my money in, but like want to spend the highest dollar for my kid. And I just think if you want to spend your money anywhere, that's fine. Pay for whatever you want to pay for. I don't see the problem with offering that as an option. And I know some people will say, well, that's unfair. Well, yeah, I do think life is unfair. And on that point, yeah, that right there is something Tom Sowell points out in The Quest for Cosmic Justice. People have a problem, I think, that life is unfair, and they take it out on, um, like, everyone. And it's just like, okay, well, yeah, but that's what kids do, and teenagers. And it's like, yeah, we all had to go through that, but like as an adult, at some point that you need to realize that life is just unfair, and you can't hit a government button. That's something like Ben Shapiro said. You can't hit a government button and government happens and people fix everything, because life is unfair, and people, a lot of people are trying their best, and some people are extremely corrupt. But we should take care of those corrupt people and also recognize that life is never going to be fair. So, I don't know. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Strongly agree. I don't think you should get to lie. Straight up. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Yeah. There has to be competition for it to be a really free market. I think we're seeing the effects of that right now. The proof of that in this world right now. Um, I had, oh man, I had a great international studies textbook, but I can't remember the name of it right now. But it talks a lot about that, and I wouldn't mind talking about that again at a different time. Okay, abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. Look, I don't agree with it morally, I think, but because I don't feel like we have enough questions answered about human consciousness right now, or religion, or a lot of different things. I don't think it's right. But it is not the government's role to make health decisions like that. And it is a health decision. I don't. I think that there's a stage where it should maybe. Well, there has to be some kind of regulation on it. There has to be a stage where you can't do it anymore. But I think that there is a stage where we have to allow it, because it is a health decision and everybody has to make it for themselves. And if you force somebody to carry a child and she dies, what then? And what if you force somebody to carry a child and they put it out on the street and it freezes to death, or then they can't take care of? It's not the government's role. And I think that what our role as human beings should be is to try to make life as easy as possible for young parents, and such that there are no unwanted pregnancies, which I think would require a lot of things, like making contraception readily available, sex education in schools, even though I know that that has problems to it, but I think that that is better, because I think it will lead to fewer abortions. I think we can we can actually build back better, and not be corporatist shills. I think that we can, what else? We can advocate for, like, pro-life ideas in our communities, and talk about them, but I don't think we can legislate them. I would be completely comfortable with, passing an amendment to, protect that. I don't think it should be legal. All authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. I think that you're a sucker if you don't question things. Why would you serve somebody without questioning why and their motives? You should question everything. Question everything. Here's what I know. I think, therefore I am. Everything else I'm most suspicious of. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Strongly disagree. I posted about this on my page the other day, but there is a moment in the third book of the Hunger Games, Mockingjay, where if you don't know the Hunger Games, go frickin' read it and watch it and stop listening to me because I'm about to spoil it. The victors of the games, which if you're still listening to me, you should know what I'm talking about. Literally, don't ruin this for yourself. It's one of the best series. The victors of the games get to decide what is going to happen to the citizens of the capital and their children. They have to decide whether or not they should make the children go through the same thing that they went through. And I believe the vote comes out yes in the end. I'm not sure it ever actually happens. But here's the thing. There's no justice in revenge. Revenge feels good, and I think it's good for us. It's cathartic, and I think it's good for us to have movies like Django. But here's the problem with and I don't want to make it sound like if you're an actual slave, you shouldn't fucking I don't know what you can say online these days. The people who are capturing you. So that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is there is no justice in revenge, in the sense that what makes us superior to the people who we are judging, because that is what a part of the government has to do. We have to legislate in what is acceptable in our society and what isn't. And when people cross those boundaries and we are going to put a label on them and judge them then and condemn them, we have to then be better than them. So, for example, if I were the king or queen or whatever, and I were in charge of somebody who had raped, pulled a Nasser, I would not think it's acceptable to have that person Nassered or Weinsteined. What I would do is put them on their knees and execute them, because that is, to me, justice. But that's as a monarch, okay? In a democratic society, we, the people, have to decide how to deal with situations like that. And I think it is dangerous, and I think it is cyclical to act out these revenge narratives in a society, because if somebody did something to your grandparents and as a result you do something to them, well, then something happened to their grandchildren's grandparents, and then they're going to do. You see what I'm saying? This is what the judges come around and say every single time. We can't continue to perpetuate these cycles. We have to at some point step up and be better. And so we have to obey a law that goes beyond and is more civil than an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And I'm sorry I spent so much time on that question, but yeah. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Hey, I am going to say agree, and here's why. I think that art is political, and I think that information is political to some extent, and I think that there's a creationism museum, and I don't want to pay for it. And I think that there are people who would love going to that museum who don't want to fund the kind of art I would make, and more power to them. I think that if we want to pay for something, that we should support those things. And I think that if something is important to the community should step up and pay for it. But we shouldn't just have to fund things we don't agree with. So, yeah. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I think this is going to be one of the hardest questions, and this is going to be controversial, but I'm going to hit agree. And reason being is because I'm very sensitive to the fact that the state is untrustworthy, and I don't think, especially with everything going on these days, and you guys can look up and decide for yourself whether or not you think that the parents being arrested in school board meetings is justified or not based on the specific instances in their actions. But I am concerned about the level of propaganda I see on the news and what's being taught at school. I think a lot of parents are concerned about that, especially with having their kids home and really seeing what's being taught and how they're being taught. And I think that if you did not, I would understand a parent not wanting their kids in these institutions. Granted, if it's not required, there's going to be plenty of like super religious people who are not going to get their girls educated at all, and there's going to be consequences to that. But there's consequences to it being compulsory. There's also going to be people who just use their kids basically as unpaid labor because they're not required to be at school. But also, it doesn't mean that it's tough. It's a tough call. I'm going to go with agree because I think that between parents and government, I'm going to go ahead and let the parents decide what's going to happen with their offspring. All people have their rights, but it's better for us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Yeah, I agree with that. All people should have their constitutional rights, but I think that they want you to come off as a bigot, and maybe I am a bigot. But I think that we all feel like, hey, I want you to be able to make a space that works for you and where you feel actualized and but I want you to do that over there because I don't like what the fuck you're doing. I think that that's great that we have different communities and we can like visit them, and when you go visit, you should have your constitutional rights. No one should threaten you. Everybody should be free exchange, but yeah, like, hey, God bless you. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Look, strongly disagree. I think that there are good parents who have spanked their children. I was spanked a couple times as a kid. I don't know if that's like weird to say. Not many, like maybe like 2 or 3 by my grandparents. Especially, but because they're, but I think that the data speaks for itself. I think that most parents are out here trying their best. But I think the data speaks for itself that spanking is not the wave. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. I'm going to say disagree. Because I didn't keep too many secrets from my parents, quite frankly. And I think maybe it's cocky, but I think my kids might keep even fewer because I think I am open to a free exchange of ideas and I'm not that strict. In terms of like, I don't like just want to get pissed off at them. I'm just gonna discipline them. Hey, and I think that kids like discipline because it makes you a competent and strong person. So I think if I can explain to them, hey, this is why I'm gonna have to punish you in this way, and not be overly harsh about it, and talk them through everything, they won't feel the need to keep any secrets from me. They probably will keep. Maybe it is a little natural. Maybe I should say agree because I don't need to know. Once they get to a certain, it depends on what you mean by children. I'll keep it at disagree to be optimistic, but it depends on what you mean by children. Because I don't need to know all the details once I've given them the information. They're 17 years old. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree. Don't tread on me. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find a job. Strongly agree. I mean, people with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Look, strongly disagree. Do I think that it's a good idea? No. I hope that doesn't make me sound like Hitler. No. I would want to, me personally, I want to bring I don't know, maybe, I want to bring a kid into the world that I think is going to have a strong chance of living a happy, healthy life. It doesn't mean that if you have an inheritable disability, you can't have a great life. And it doesn't mean that those people aren't worthy. But it means that I think that you should be cautious of, you know, what your health is, before you decide whether or not to reproduce, but should not be allowed to? I don't know. Maybe even what I said is fucked up, and that certainly is to me. Um, the most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. I don't think that's the most important thing. Disagree. There are no savage and civilized people. There are only different cultures. Hey, strongly disagree. I think that there's literally a definition to those words. I don't know what it is, but yeah, there are. The idea that everybody, no, there are savage people out there. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Strongly agree. When you are troubled, it is better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Look, strongly disagree. Toxic positivity, extremely unhealthy. When you are troubled by something, you can't not think about it. You must process it, and you must expel it from your body. Until you process it, you are going to be dealing with it. Getting my dog's hair on my hat. So you need to deal with your issues, or else society's going to have to deal with your issues, and it sucks. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. I do not agree with that. I'm going to say disagree. There are a lot of people out there. And I actually worked as a paralegal for a while, and I met a lot of first generation immigrants, and I disagree with that. What's good for the most successful corporation is always ultimately good for all of us. Man, I got something to sell you. Strongly disagree. I don't feel the need to explain that. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content should receive public funding. There are consequences to my answer, but I'm going to say agree, because I don't think that there is such a thing as neutral content. And I think, again, if you want something, you can pay for it. And especially now that we have the internet, like, we have these parasocial relationships. If you want to fucking pay somebody on Patreon, pay them. And get them to talk about how they got the data. Make them source it. But I don't know about public funding. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Yes. There was, our civil liberties were curbed when I was a young kid. In the George Bush era's, Patriot Act came up due to counterterrorism. Now I think that they're being curbed, and our constitutional rights are under threat. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom, right to bear arms, freedom to religion. I think that you should be concerned about all of those things, due to the counterterrorism of white nationalism. The data shows that white nationalism is not the problem that the media wants you to think that it is. Is racism a problem in our society? Yes. But white nationalism, to the extent that the media is suggesting, no. I'm happy to talk about racism, and I'm happy to talk about the ways that it's impacting our society at a different point when I'm not taking this quiz. But you are not to give up your constitutional rights. Don't do it. You don't let them convince you that your neighbor is the goddamn problem, such that you give up your rights and you sell your neighbor to the state. What did we learn in school, y'all? Read a book. Yeah, our civil liberties are, and that's exactly one of the reasons I made my page. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. So this is one of the questions where I was like, that's objectively true. And if you look at their frequently asked questions, if you want to take this, you'll see that this pops up, because they point out that, like, yes, that is objectively true. But what they're really saying is, like, do you think that a one-party state is preferable or advantageous to a democratic system? And I don't. I strongly disagree with totalitarianism. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Strongly disagree, because wrongdoers is subjective, and who gets to define it? Wrongdoers means dissenters, and depending on who's in charge, everyone needs to be worried when their neighbors are being tyrannized. You're next. Don't tread on me. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. I agree. And the reason why I'm not going to say strongly agree is because I'm suspicious of the state. And I think that it should be saved for the most severe cases with the highest bar of evidence. And I don't know how we would define highest bar, but I'm from Tacoma, Washington. Ted Bundy lived over there. I know quite a few people who knew him. I went to First United Methodist Church growing up. He went to First United Methodist Church. He went to the University of Washington. Also, when I lived in Philadelphia, like I just told you, I was a paralegal. I went there for school at Bryn Mawr. I lived in Philly. I used the Temple Station all the time. He went to Temple. Ted Bundy. We have people like Nasser, where it is crimes, Dahmer, to the extent where they don't belong here anymore. However, if the death penalty is an option at all, it means that innocent people are likely to die, which is why we have to be very, 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 very stringent in our use of that as a society. And I don't think that crimes like treason should ever be up for grabs, because we don't want political stuff to get mixed in. We want this to be for, like, gross pedophilia, like horrible serial killing, stuff like that. There are maybe a few other things, but we all who don't like those kind of things, who aren't like that inside, we don't want those people around. So we got to figure it out. And I don't want to pay for them for the rest of their life. What if they get out? No, they don't belong. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. I strongly agree with that. It doesn't mean that we can't have a democracy, but and quite frankly, we have a republic, so that even reinforces what the question is saying. But we should have hierarchies based off of competency. See, I'm not competent in speaking, so obviously I shouldn't be at the top of the hierarchy there. But yeah, people who are older have more skills, so we're always gonna have hierarchies just because of that. There are children right now. Abstract art doesn't represent anything, shouldn't be considered art. Look, strongly disagree. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I strongly disagree, although I do think that there are some criminals we cannot rehabilitate, which it is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. I'm going to hit agree and not strongly agree, because I think most people who are in prison should not be in there. And I think that the reason that they are in there is because of our flaws of this society, our shitty education system, a lot of the problems, a lot of the structural issues that we have. But I volunteered in a prison, and I worked in a prison because I was paid sometimes. And here's what I will say. And I already talked about Bundy, but here's what I will say. I worked with about 60 to 80 kids, most of them boys, almost all boys, a couple girls in there. I only met one that, and I sat with a kid one-on-one who was in for murder one, and he couldn't be around anyone else. I had to work with him privately because he was in for such a serious crime. He was normal. I think that I could have been him in a different life, where I grew up in his circumstances. I met one kid And he was not even in for a crime that you would really think, like, it certainly wasn't murder one, but the nature of the crime was sadistic. It wasn't even, it, it, I won't say because I don't want somebody to be able to look up who it is, based off of where I lived. But it was a sadistic crime that wasn't even something so serious. It wasn't sexual in nature or anything like that. But the smirk, there's no rehabilitating that person, I promise. Everybody else in that building that I had met, I believe was us with a shitty hand dealt. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Strongly disagree. Because when totalitarianism comes knocking at the door, you need your writers and your artists. Everybody serves a function in society. Mothers may have a career, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I think that when you become a parent, your first duty is always going to be a parent. But that's not really what the question asks, is it? So I'm going to say disagree instead of strongly disagree. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. I don't have the data on this, but probably. I don't have the data. You guys are going to have to research that one. I'm going to say agree. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Look, it depends on what establishment it is. The Democratic establishment, the Republican establishment, what establishment? Strongly disagree, because I think that a part of being mature is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's realizing what parts of the establishment are useful and what parts of the tradition and the culture are useful, and not just throwing those out for the sake of lols. But you don't have to make peace with the establishment if you don't agree with it. Fucking change it. Astrology accurately explains many things. I'm going to actually say agree to this because I don't know anything about how the cosmos actually work, but I am a religious person. I don't think that I was born at the time I was born, and I think some things that happen are random, but I don't think that everything that happens are random, and I'm not sure that your time of birth and stuff like that and where you're born and to whom you're born, I don't think that stuff's random. I don't. So I don't know. So I guess agree. I don't know to what extent. I don't know. I don't know anything. You cannot be moral without being religious. I'm going to say I disagree with that. But I think, because I think what the question is asking is like church-going religious. You know what I'm saying? But I think that people who I respect live disciplined lives. I will say that. And I think that they have a clear hierarchy of their values, and they can talk about what they value and why they value those things and why their hierarchy is set up that way, and they actually their thoughts and their speech and their actions are actually in line with one another for the most part, because we're all like to some extent liars, but like 95% of the time, 92% of the time they are like that. So yeah. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. Oh, jeez. I'm gonna go with disagree, because I believe that humans are made for... I don't believe that we are living in the type of society that is optimal for human beings. I really don't. I think that we're built for villages or small towns. And I think if we were to live in that capacity, which I think we should, we would only need charity, really, because there would be so few people that we would know those people by name that were, not mentally healthy or like whatever, physically disadvantaged, that we needed to help those families and whatever, and we would go and do that in our community. But because we live at such a nationalized, federalized hellscape, where it's just a cold, hard, nihilistic, increasingly Stalinistic society, we're going to have some social security. Some people are naturally unlucky. Yeah, strongly agree. Some kids have cancer. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Mine, agree. Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. I don't agree with that. I don't. I think that it's not what goes in to the body, but what comes out. I think that might actually be the Bible quote, legitimately. It's probably not, but it's that idea. I think that you know what is. I think you feel it. I don't think that I'm not gonna speak about my partner online, because people are mean and scary and like literally for no reason. But I think that when you really love somebody, it's not about the ring. I think that there's godly ways to do things, and there is an essence of divinity and of sacredness that is felt, and I think that people who are in touch with that side of themselves can very easily distinguish the difference between something that is has that sacred quality and something that isn't, and actions that they're doing that comes from that sacred place, and actions that come from in a moral and I can't think of the word, but the only word that comes to my mind is kind of capitalistic or parasitic, something transactionary. Yeah, I think that's immoral. But I don't think that it's the ring on the finger. I genuinely think it's the connection that you have with that person. I think you know what it is. You know what it is. Especially because a lot of people around the world can't get married to the person that they love. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. Don't tread on me. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Strongly agree, because don't tread on me, but I think porn is bad for you and bad for me, and I think everybody should minimize how much they watch it, and they should try to keep their kids from it. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree. Don't tread on me. No one can feel naturally homosexual. I promise you guys that's not true. Strongly disagree. These days openness about sex has gone too far. I'm gonna say in some ways I think it has, but I'm gonna say strongly disagree, because I think that the consequences of societal repression is probably worse than openness. However, I am uncomfortable with the pedophilic nature of media and Hollywood. So our complacency towards Weinsteining and Nassering is disturbing, but the openness about loving intercourse between adults, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think that that is going to create healthy, like, normal adults who don't commit crimes and who don't harass people at work because they have a partner and a happy life. But that's just me. Now let's see where I stand. Alright. So, you guys can look up what the actual scale means yourself, but I will show you guys my result. Yesterday, okay, so it moved a little bit. Yesterday, I got economic left, right, 0, 0. It was right on the line between left and right. But as I told you, I changed a little bit of my answers due to reading all of the frequently asked questions and the instructions. It pretty much looks like I have the same level of authoritarian as I did before. So check it out. These are my results on the political compass. You can see. I hope it's not backwards. I can't really tell how it will come up for you guys when you watch it. But yeah, those are my results. I can take a picture and post it later. Alongside this video. And yeah, please tell me if I got any questions, you feel like I got any questions wrong, or you have more information. I think it's appropriate to do stuff like this like every year to see where your opinions change and why. Send me any other quizzes that you want me to take on video. I think I'm gonna do I Side With soon. And I might do 1 or 2 others, maybe even Myers-Briggs just for fun. So, yeah, hit me up if you have any questions, comments, whatever. I think I'm going to try to post this to YouTube, although I'm pretty sure I said, and maybe did some things that it's not going to let me post, but hopefully Instagram or Meta or whatever the fuck everything's called these days, will let me just post, me living my life and doing nothing really of note. So yeah, if you watched all the way here, wow, yeah, that's wild, and good for you. So peace out. God bless America.